persuade the leadership in Iran that there is no chance to end this crisis unless the result is annulled. Of course, there is always concern that there might be bloodshed, there could be clashes between supporters of Mr. Ahmadinejad and supporters of the opposition. They have that in consideration as well. But he has been insisting that all demonstrations must remain peaceful.
Well, of course, there has been bloodshed. Have the supporters not been intimidated? They're still turning out in the numbers that we saw initially?
Yes, as far as we know, there is no end to demonstrations. It's not having down, and people are taking to the streets, not only in Tehran and also in other major cities throughout the country. We don't know the size of the demonstration, which is going to be held today, later in Iran time, but people are so shocked by the result of this election. They believe that they must show their disappointment in the streets of Tehran, in other places. Of course, they're trying to be as peaceful as possible, but the government, on the one hand, is calling for calm, as Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader, did, but on the other hand, they are arresting more opposition leaders and alleging that they are involved in the unrest. And also there have been many attacks on student dormitories last night and the nights before.
Well, we've had reported death toll of 7 or 8. Could it be more than that?
Well, I mean, that demonstration on Monday was largely peaceful. According to some estimates, up to 1 million or at least hundreds of thousands of people took part in that demonstration. And it went quite peacefully until the end, when there was a paramilitary besiege barrack near the end of the demonstration, and we don't know exactly what happened, who started, who provoked who. Of course, the opposition says that the paramilitary forces started firing on people without any provocation. The government says those people who attacked the barrack, they were thugs, they were foreign agents, and they blame the opposition. We don't know the details, but yes, 8 people at least died in that incident, and many more were injured. But we haven't received reports of any deaths or injury or serious injury in other parts of the country.
A lot has been made of the information that is coming in on the social networking sites like Twitter. Talk to me about the information that the BBC is receiving and the picture that it's painting.
BBC Persian television has been actually influential and pivotal in a way in giving information to people in Iran. We started extended coverage before the election, during election, and now during this demonstration. We are receiving thousands of emails every day from our viewers throughout Iran, and we receive hundreds of phone calls every day, despite many restrictions in Iran for making phone calls abroad. We have 2 interactivity programs on air every day, and while we are on air, we receive many phone calls from Iran, despite the fact that people have been warned in Iran that if they call foreigners, there might be trouble for them. But nonetheless, people are calling us, and we also are receiving at least 7 videos from Iran, which is really huge, and we use them in our programs. And this movement is probably, some people say, could be the first kind of electronic revolution or electronic peaceful movement in the world, because new technology is playing a big role in the demonstrations during the election. So everybody, especially youngsters who are involved in demonstrations or in the election, they are using the new media, and the government is doing its best as well to restrict access to new media.
Well, how do you wade through what's right and wrong? How do you avoid being caught up in what could be misinformation?
Well, of course, we always double check. We make sure that the information we are receiving are correct. Of course, there are organizations, government-led organizations in Iran who try to give misinformation. A lot of hacking on sites are going on during this crisis in Iran. We do our best to make sure that we are putting on air is absolutely correct, and BBC Persian television, despite accusation from the Iranian government that we are involved in the unrest, we remain impartial and we're trying our best to give impartial information to people of Iran, to our viewers, which are millions of people. And the Persian television is, of course, partially jammed in Iran, but still people manage to watch us through other satellite and also through the internet.
It would certainly appear then that the authorities haven't been able to control the flow of information. What do you think their next approach is going to be?
Well, I mean, it appears that the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is trying his best to regain the initiative and control the situation by, on the one hand, giving concession and allowing the Guardian Council, the election commission body in Iran, to do a recount of the votes.
But that's been rejected already, hasn't it?
This has been rejected, and that is not going to satisfy the opposition. The opposition says they want nothing short of an annulment of the election and rerun of the election. This is what they want. But the government may trying to buy time because the Guardian Council has 10 days to give its answer, whether there was any fraud or something. And maybe the government is expecting during 10 days the demonstration might gradually die down. But on the other hand, and at the same time, the government is launching a crackdown on the foreign media in Iran, restricting foreign media reporting in Iran, and also arresting many opposition figures. They are all reformist. I mean, for instance, a deputy to former President Mohammad Khatami has been arrested. A former minister, Behzad Nawawi, has been arrested. So there are many people who have been arrested. They are part of the establishment as such. But nonetheless, the government is accusing them of being ringleaders, the alleged ringleaders. But it appears to me that most demonstrations going on in Iran are largely spontaneous. There is no central leadership. People contact each other through Twitter or other technology, and then they gather in a certain place at a certain time for demonstrations. But yes, I mean, the government, on the one hand, Ayatollah Khamenei seems to be giving some concession. On the other hand, using state security to suppress opposition.
And we've seen the Revolutionary Guard take even more power on the streets, threatening the online media to shut down. What sort of role are they going to be playing?
I mean, Revolutionary Guards have not so far, at least, openly been involved in suppressing the demonstrations. They take their orders from the supreme leader in Iran's complicated power structure. It is the supreme leader who is the most powerful man. It is not the president. And the supreme leader is the ultimate authority and controls Revolutionary Guards and other security forces. The Revolutionary Guards so far have remained in their barracks. They have not been involved. But, of course, there is fear among the opposition that if things get out of control as far as the establishment is concerned, they might use Revolutionary Guards as well.
Is it the case that no matter what happens now, that these cracks have been opened and that the kind of dissent we've seen over the last few days will continue to demand a voice in Iran?
Yes, indeed. I mean, this is the most serious crisis the Islamic regime has faced since its establishment 30 years ago. There are not only millions of demonstrators in the streets of Tehran and other large cities. At the same time, there is a power struggle going on within the ruling elite. President Ahmadinejad, during his TV debates with other candidates, accused a senior figure in the Islamic Republic, the former president Hashemi Rafsanjani, of corruption. And Hashemi Rafsanjani is head of the Assembly of Experts, one of the most important institutions in Iran, which constitutionally has the power to appoint a new leader and dismiss the current leader if they find him not doing his job properly. I am not saying this is going to be possible, but I'm just talking about theory and constitution and the legal system in Iran. So when he was attacked by Mr. Ahmadinejad, that meant there is a power struggle going on. People close to Mr. Rafsanjani fear that there might be a new purge going on in Iran, and some of the pillars of the Islamic revolution, Mr. Rafsanjani himself, might be in danger in this crisis. And also the former President Mohammad Khatami